We end tonight with a mystery from the deep. Scientists on the West Coast are at a loss to explain what is killing sea stars, also known as starfish. Ben Tracy says in some places, 95% of the starfish population has died.
A sudden surge of the animals wasting away in just the past 2 weeks.
So-called melting sea stars were first noticed in Vancouver, then in Seattle, and now in California.
They are alarmed at a mystery epidemic.
What's been killing starfish?
At this time, we don't have a good idea of what's causing this.
There is an epidemic in our ocean. The outbreak that hit the West Coast in 2013 was the largest marine disease outbreak on record. Sea stars off the west coast of Baja California, Mexico, all the way to Alaska, have died at unprecedented rates from the syndrome that we now call sea star wasting disease. It appears first as lesions on the outer skin of the stars and causes limbs to fall off completely as it progresses. Eventually, the whole animal dies. Scientists and community members alike were forced to watch in horror as some of the most important members of their ecosystems rapidly disappeared. Here in the Salish Sea, scientists got to work, including Drew Harvell, a marine disease ecologist who dropped everything and flew all the way back to Seattle from Indonesia, where she was leading a project as soon as she realized the severity of the outbreak.
The surprising thing in the initial outbreaks was how many different species were affected. So sea star wasting disease has been reported previously, but usually it's only in one small geographic area or just a single species of star. So it immediately got my attention to see 15 species kind of dying sequentially. And the striking thing about the sunflower star Pycnopodia is it was always the one that died first and most catastrophically.
At the time, we didn't know just how bad their decline was, but now a study led by Oregon State University, the Nature Conservancy, and over 60 partner institutions estimates that as many as 5.75 billion sunflower sea stars have died since 2013. That represents over a 90% loss of the global population.
I just didn't really think this would happen. I did not think we were going to be listing an endangered species. 7 years into the outbreak, and here we are. We've just listed it 3 months ago.
Since its decline, we've learned a lot about the ecology of the sunflower star, and this has revealed the long-term continental scale impacts of the epidemic on our ecosystems. The loss of this once abundant species has had massive repercussions on ocean food webs and kelp forest habitats up and down the 3,000 kilometers between Alaska and Mexico. It turns out that removing the species has caused sea urchin populations to explode. These voracious eaters have decimated kelp beds, and the further ecological ramifications of this destruction have created one big domino effect that has been affecting fisheries as well as other species like crab and abalone, who also depend on the kelp forests. But what was actually the cause of this catastrophic outbreak? One thing that researchers noted in common where they saw outbreaks of the disease was unusually warm water temperatures.
One of the things we're finding is that infectious disease is increasing under warming conditions. And since we're expecting a lot more warming as our climate is changing, we can expect that there will be more new infectious diseases cropping up. And this is because both the hosts become stressed and the pathogens can cycle faster at warmer temperatures. So it's very important to be able to manage infectious disease better, both on land and in the sea.
Biologists and agencies like the Nature Conservancy, Seattle Aquarium, and Friday Harbor Laboratories have been pulling together to try to devise strategies for how to manage the epidemic to keep this endemic species in our ocean. One of the most important first steps was the development of a captive breeding program at Friday Harbor Laboratories on San Juan Island.
Yeah, my name is Jason Hoden. I'm a senior research scientist here at Friday Harbor Labs, and I study metamorphosis in the ocean of marine organisms.
Jason is the first person to breed sunflower stars, and he is perfect for the task with a research background in optimizing the growth of marine larvae through their various metamorphic stages. He started this project in April 2019, and at that time we still knew very little about the life cycle of these animals.
People looked at sunflower stars that are this size and wondered, what is that? Is that a 5-year-old? Is that a 50-year-old? I mean, what is, what's the minimum time, I guess, it would take to get to that big size. So we grow them for about 60 days through that first part of the life cycle in jars, and then they get to their settlement stage. We settle them out as little juveniles, which are super tiny. You can see them, but barely. They're about the size of a poppy seed. And what we found is that they'll grow from that sort of poppy seed size to about the size of fitting inside the palm of your hand in about a year, which is far faster than we thought. We didn't think that we're going to get that big in a year. If they're this size in 1 year, and they're this size in 2 years, and that's reproductive size, we think they can reproduce in 2 years. Now, how long it takes to get from that to this, we don't know yet. So we think that like in 4 or 5 years, you can have a full or mostly full-grown adult potentially.
But growing the stars is only the first step. Jason is hoping that next year his lab will be able to carry out a small-scale reintroduction and monitoring project here in the San Juan Islands. Reintroducing a major predator to an ecosystem is not an easy task, especially when the animal has become extinct across much of its range. But there is promising data which suggests that the genetic composition of populations along the coast might be similar enough that Jason's stars could be released outside of the Salish Sea. Jason's breeding program is only the beginning of the solution. Before we can repopulate this species, we will need a lot more people breeding sunflower stars.
We are trying to do a lot of the things on a small scale that one could replicate on a larger scale too. So, we think about what we're doing is sort of putting together, a recipe book, if you will, for how to grow a sea star.
There are a lot of ways forward. Obviously, reducing the pathogens we put in the water would be very, very good. With better septic treatment, very great care and best practices with aquaculture would be important.
Regardless of whether or not we have a direct, consumption or something, if we see a direct benefit to humans, I mean, the benefits, are there, and they reveal themselves in kind of stark and shocking ways, really.
Focusing on what is it that provides health for marine organisms will give us very valuable clues for also human health as well. And one big way back to a healthy ocean is more natural ecosystems and studying the pathogen fighting services of those natural ecosystems.
We have learned a lot in the last 8 years. This wouldn't have been possible without scientists like Drew, Jason, and many others who come from different disciplines and collaborate to solve problems and to take active stewardship of an ecosystem that they love at a place like Friday Harbor Laboratories. With over 100 years of experience and research in raising marine embryos and larvae, Friday Harbor Labs has been invaluable to this project.
Wouldn't have been possible without the support of a place like Friday Harbor Labs.
But the support that they have received extends beyond the labs.
Especially during the time we were looking for stars in the first place, people were really great about letting us come onto their land to search for stars and send in observations. I had a couple of crab fishermen send me photos of sunflower stars coming up in their crab pots, and these were really important in being able to identify what we've now found out are certain hot spots on the island and around the islands where the populations are still existing. The kayak groups were really, really keen on trying to find sunflower stars with their clients when they were out paddling around in various parts of the island, and that was really fun working with them.
The cascading and far-reaching effects caused by the loss of sunflower stars has reaffirmed what many of us already knew, that the well-being of our societies are not separate but correlated to the well-being of the ecosystems around us. As a community, we've collaborated in the past, and we will need to collaborate again in order to restore this species. The future of the sunflower stars and the health of our marine ecosystems depend not only on researchers, but also on citizen scientists. We all have the opportunity to be a part of the solution.